Hey, it's Patrick, also commonly referred to as Producer Patrick. This is my first YouTube video. I know, it's been a long time. I've never been on the site, but with the encouragement of a fellow YouTuber, Rick Beto, who's a music producer, he said, hey man, you were right where I was during the crash of the music industry. Why aren't you making your own content? And I thought about it and I said, okay, well, you got to start somewhere. So I'm here now on YouTube starting to make content. And I'm going to use the platform to have interviews and talk to people within the film and television industry, get their perspective, and really offer a little bit more in-depth analysis and insight on what is happening with the entertainment industry. But, okay, that's a good start, but also I'm going to use this video to talk about me. I mean, everybody knows me as Producer Patrick. They know my experience as a unscripted television producer, but does anybody know who this guy is? Where do I come from? What are my likes and dislikes? And well, I think this is a perfect opportunity to kind of give you some background about who I am, where I come from, and a little bit more of how I broke into the entertainment industry back when times were a little bit more lucrative, as one might say. But anyway, let's go way back to 1981, year of the cock. That was the year I entered this planet, and I entered number 10 of 10 kids. That's right, I'm from a family of 10. I have 6 older brothers and 3 older sisters. Before you start saying, oh my God, that poor woman, that was his mother, I come from a blended family. I come from a yours, mine, and ours family. Ironically, my mom's maiden name was Brady. But both my parents were widowed. My dad had 5 kids, my mom had 4 kids. And then they got together at a widowers meeting and they were married for 6 years. And then my dad shot his shot, let's just say, and I showed up. But I have this amazing family with a lot of older influence that has always been around me. My siblings are these amazing people. We all love each other, and that's one thing that my parents gifted to all of us is this admiration, respect, and a little bit of integrity and a lot of empathy. There was a lot of tragedy in my family, which I think gives a unique perspective of sort of the human endeavor. At the same time, I was sort of the artistic one. I grew up in Florida, of all places, a small little town called Vero Beach, Florida. I describe it as a sunny place for shady people. But because my parents were New Yorkers, and my dad was an Italian immigrant who came to the US when he was 5, worked his way up, became Deputy Director of Social Security for 30 years, and then retired. And they retired to Florida, except I was still young, so they kind of had to tag me along, and I, in a weird, almost sitcom environment, grew up in a retirement community, one of those 55 and older gated communities, and that's where I spent my formative years. So I was very eclectic as a child, but at the same time, about growing up in Florida, about 45 minutes away in the big city, Orlando, probably in the late 80s, early 90s, Universal Studios came along and Disney MGM came along. And those places had such a profound impact on my life. I remember showing up to Universal Studios and Disney MGM, and back then those theme parks were actually more catered to learning about how movies and TV were made. They weren't just, entertainment and rides. Those parks actually had meaning and substance to them. Their attractions were like how sitcoms got made, or how do you do sound design, or how do you do special effects. They had really great attractions. And I soaked it all in and I said, this is what I want to do. And of course, my dad, who was a government worker for 30 years, was like, get a government job. That's a safe bet. He'd be rolling in his grave now. But anyway, at such an early age, I knew that this was what I wanted to do. I wanted to be a storyteller. And through the visual medium, per se. I'm not going to try to cut this or cut anything out. I'm just going, so just kind of roll with me. All right, so let's fast forward. I became college age. I got into the Newhouse School at Syracuse University. I majored in television, radio, and film. It was something I wanted to do from the very beginning, from the very start, right out of the gates. So I got my first job in news in New York City at CBS News, and that was the only way I could break into the industry at the time. California still seemed like a very far away place, and because most of my family was New York based, my parents encouraged me to stay on the East Coast. But news really wasn't my thing. I worked at CBS News for quite some time, and then I moved over to Court TV. I was Nancy Grace's production assistant for a short while, and while many people have their opinions of Nancy Grace, as I always say, she was always sweet to me. But Court TV was a wild time. Kimberly Guilfoyle also worked there, and she was weirdly married to Gavin Newsom and was the first lady of San Francisco. Savannah Guthrie did the top of the hour news, and I was there for the Scott Peterson and Michael Jackson trial. So it was a really big year to be at Court TV. But I think through there, I kind of started to understand television a little bit more, but I really wanted to do entertainment. I always wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be a sitcom writer, and the sitcoms were out in LA, so I packed up my bags. I convinced my dad. I said, hey, I'm going whether you support me or not support me. My dad's like, fine, fuck it. Okay, we'll get in a U-Haul. My father, who was 80 years old at the time, got in a U-Haul with me, and we crossed the country to LA. And I was, much more of an excited visual kid. I wanted to stop at like the world's largest ball of twine and see the Anheuser-Busch brewery. Meanwhile, my dad, who's the stubborn Italian immigrant mule, wanted to beat the U-Haul cross-continental record. So we made it to LA in 4 days in a U-Haul. And I landed in LA, and I got about 2 months of money saved up. And if that money was used up in 2 months, I would have to move back with my tail between my legs. And amazingly, in week 3, I got a job at E! Entertainment at the show True Hollywood Story as a production assistant, and my career just kind of started there. And just through networking, I eventually ended up on a show called Kid Nation, which was a little controversial at the time, but back in like 2006, reality television was in its kind of boom phase, and sitcoms, which I really wanted to do, were kind of not really existed at the time. So I guess reality TV really sort of was my niche, and I got this opportunity, and I thought it was a big opportunity because it was with CBS. And I said, okay, this is a major network. This could be a game changer. And I got on the show, and while Kid Nation had controversy, I also met producers from Big Brother and The Amazing Race who were also working on that show. And I'm sure you've heard a million times, it's not what you know, it's who you know, and right place at right time. That's absolutely true. 50% of your career is luck, being at the right place at the right time and being put in front of the right people. Now, the other 50% is what you do with that luck. And that's where I think most people fumble the ball. I was in a position called a hot sheet writer. And what the hot sheets were in reality TV is everything that happens within the day gets summarized and gets basically placed in a kind of like a 5-page outline. It's called the hot sheet, and it's the events of what happened in reality in the day. See, reality is not scripted. It's actually, this was back more in the traditional reality world where what happened. And my reports were great. I think people instantly recognized I was a storyteller and I was a decent writer, and all of a sudden the hot sheets got passed around. It's like, hey, this kid Patrick, you should pay attention to him. And after that, I got a call to be on a show called The Amazing Race. And I was young. I was super young. I was 25 at the time. So I was still, borderline insecure, not quite sure what the hell I was doing, a little bit too trusting maybe, and maybe a little bit too naive at times. But I became a field producer on Amazing Race at a very young age. And all of a sudden I was traveling the world and going places that I'd never even thought of or sometimes never even heard of before getting on the show. And when you realize like you could be a storyteller, travel the world, and do these exciting TV moments. And I was there on Amazing Race for some of the biggest moments in TV. I was there when the watermelon hit the woman's face. I was there when Micah wouldn't go down the water slide. And I became a producer on this show, and that really gave me sort of the unscripted hook of like, this is amazing type of TV. It's documentary, so it feels real. We're really capturing these moments. They're happening right in front of me. I'm here and experiencing it, and it's stuff that I can't write. But I could also be involved in the challenges and the creative process that way. And the more I kind of fell into this adventure niche, the more I wanted to do it. So I started working with Discovery, with National Geographic, and I was doing survival shows. And if it was going to a place that was off the grid or there was always an adventure to it, I was game. And that was my career for a very long time. Now, other things, of course, more important to me happened during that time. I got married. My wife is a wonderful woman, and I love her very much. She stays off social media for the most part, but she also went to Syracuse. She's in PR and is a sort of corporate magistrate of what you want to say. She's a boss lady, and she's cool as shit. We have 2 kids that are young, boy and a girl, and their ages 8 and 6. And I'm dad at home, and a lot of people don't know that. I tend to keep my kids off socials as well because I think they would respect that, and I respect their privacy, and maybe one day they'll want to be on. My son's a bit of a ham, and I think he'll probably take over this one day. And he probably will do a better job too. And outside of that, I moved up to San Jose. I lived in LA for about 18 years, and then we decided to move up to Northern California to have a little bit more of a breath of fresh air and a little bit more of a less hustle and bustle lifestyle. And that pretty much kind of sums it up for me. That, of course, obviously, you know what happened after the industry crashed. I think most of my social media really kind of picks up from there. But that's more about me, and feel free to ask questions in the comments if you want to know more. And I'll be sure to answer questions you might have. Like I said, I want to just kind of start this channel, start talking to you guys, start talking to industry professionals, and really start getting very deep and immersive in the evolution of the entertainment industry, and really kind of see where it goes from there. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, listen to the stories, and there's going to be plenty more where that comes from. So thanks for subscribing to my YouTube channel. If you didn't, please subscribe, and I'll talk to you soon. Take care.